Chapter 3 King Jupiter. The weariness vanished from Father as he closed his eyes, focusing on the tale. He smiled as if the memory of the story was sweet. There was a long, silent pause. Just when Heather and Pickett began to wonder if he would ever speak again, he started. Long ago in the great wood there lived a rabbit king named Walter. You have heard many tales of Whitsun Mariner and the First Trackers. I have told you of the escape from Golden Coast, the calamitous sea passage, the discovery of Natalia, and the Battle of Amon Lake. You know of King Whitsun, of brave Settle, of loyal Captain Blackstar, and the others of our first heroes. Over 100 years separated King Walter from his famous ancestor Whitsun Mariner, and 1,000 tales lay between them. Many kings were born, lived, and died in Natalia. Some of them were good and some were bad. King Walter was so well loved that his small number of subjects called him the Good King, or King Good. This name came to distinguish him from his father, a cruel lord who served himself all his days. King Good had not only goodness but also ambition. He tirelessly built back all that his father had lost and more besides. He called his small kingdom the 30 Warrens, though in truth there were only 12 when he came to the throne. But he aspired to build and create to secure good for all those who would follow. Jupiter, his third son and heir, took all his father's vision into his heart. He was like his father, only, to King Good's delight, far more jolly and wise. Jupiter Goodson ascended to the throne when his aged father was killed by raiding hawks. By the time King Jupiter had been on the throne for 5 years, the 30 Warrens, as the kingdom was still called, included nearly 100 warrens and spanned almost the entirety of the Great Wood. He was a great lord, humble and happy. He sought justice and went to war to get it. He was magnificent in battle. The world has never before seen such a noble king, and never has since. Heather noticed Mother looking sadly at Father, a tear streaking down her cheek. Father went on. He had a powerful army and great captains to lead it. One captain was Perkin One-Eye, perhaps King Jupiter's greatest friend and most valiant warrior. There was also Stam the Stout, Pickwand, Fesselhorn, and Harlin the Seer, the wizened warrior. 9 great wars were fought over 20 years. They are all worthy of great tales. Of course, King Jupiter was there in every battle, leading from the front with a fierceness rarely ever known in rabbits. In the Red Valley War, King Jupiter came to the aid of a small collection of warrens under siege. They were threatened by a pack of wolves led by their wicked king, a ruthless wolf named Garlax. King Jupiter swept the wolves from the Red Valley. He fought Garlax himself, ending him in a spectacular battle as the red sun set. Oh, they sang songs of his victory for years. He was a wonder. Father paused to collect himself again. Heather and Pickett waited, wise and silent, eager for more. Heather wondered why such a happy story could make Father so sad, but she didn't ask. Then she remembered that Father had called this tale the rise and fall of King Jupiter the Great. Father went on. He became known as the greatest fighting king of the age. It was his glory for a while, but eventually began to trouble him. The laughter in him quieted, and he became graver. He believed he had always tried to achieve peace, and was sad that he so often had to find it at the end of his sword. So King Jupiter the Great, Lord of the 30 Warrens, bent all his energies to diplomacy, to avoid any wars that could be prevented. Thanks to his many victories and his great army, he was successful. He forged historically unthinkable alliances with squirrels, the smaller birds, and most of the smaller animals of the forest. He became sovereign of the Great Wood. He worked for peace in the forest, using his allied forces to rid the land of the most troublesome elements, including the fairly small number of birds of prey. All the awful raptors were banished back to their haunts in the high bleaks, for the forest was vigilantly protected by the vaunted army of Jupiter Goodson. In the firelight, Heather watched Mother cross the room and lay Jax in his crib. She stayed there for a while, watching him sleep, as Father went on. All the energy he had earlier given to war he put into gaining peace. and keeping it. As his army had great captains, so too he had a council of 7 ambassadors. Here Father stopped again, walking to stand in front of the fire, as if a sudden chill had found him. His back to the children, he went on. These councillors served as his own voice in the far regions of the forest and beyond. One rabbit he called to be their chief, Garten Longtreader. He lived up to the name of Longtreader, making countless journeys into the deeps of the forest on missions to make alliances for the king. It was he who was credited for much of the expansion of the rule of Jupiter Goodson. It was said that King Jupiter held the world together, but Longtreader was his thread. The king was happy and just, Father said, his voice cracking, ruling with wisdom and building the idyllic kingdom his father had dreamed of. When the great alliance was forged and the war seemed a glorious memory, King Jupiter finally rested from his adventuring and married. His family grew, and he was truly happy. Father stopped again, closed his eyes, and rubbed his chin. Mother slowly crossed the room again, her head bowed. The king was asked during this time by a faithful subject, "What, Lord Jupiter, is the greatest joy in the peace you have won?" He did not answer suddenly. That was not his way. He was a philosopher king, so he thought on it. Finally, after several moments in silence, he answered with a wide smile, "That I am my father's true son." Father bent then, sobbing quietly, and Mother came to his side. She put her arms around him, eventually kissing his cheek and whispering in his ear. He nodded and laid his hand on her shoulder gently. "You were always right, my dear," he said. "I couldn't keep it from them any longer. Who knows what may—" His voice trailed off. Mother nodded. "I know." "I'm sorry for my tears, children. They are not all sad, but some are. It's a story that—" He began, but he could not finish. "It's lovely, Father," Heather said into the quiet, her voice soft. Father whispered thanks to her, then stood. "He was magnificent, children. I wish you could have seen him standing at the head of his forces in gleaming golden armor. Like the dawn, children. All who knew him loved him without reserve," Father said, but he stopped, struggling to go on. Mother hung her head, and Father managed to say, "Well, I should say that almost everyone loved him loyally." "Father will tell you more another time," Mother said, taking his arm. "For now it's time to sleep. It's a happy thought that there could be such a king, isn't it?" "It is, Mother," Heather said, her mind overflowing with questions and answers, gleaming armor and flashing swords. "It's too good not to be true." A few minutes later, Heather and Pickett lay quietly in their beds upstairs. Their father had whispered his blessings on them, and Heather could hear his footfalls as he descended the winding stairs. Heather stared out of the small window beyond Pickett's bed at the bright white moon. The storm was over, and it was almost chilly. From below, she heard Mother humming the song she'd begun to sing earlier. Then she and Father were singing softly, sadly, together. But it wasn't all sad. She couldn't make out the words, though she strained to hear them, but she understood something of what it meant. It was sad, yes, but there was a note of hopeful longing woven into the aching heartbreak of the tune. She closed her eyes on tears.